Hi Rangers, today we're going to be talking about the coordinate plane. So our objective for this lesson is to plot and or identify ordered pairs on a coordinate plane. So we have some vocabulary words that we need to go over. So first one, it says blank is the plane formed by two number lines intersecting at their 0 points. This is known as the coordinate plane. Okay, the x-axis is the horizontal number line. And if you are not sure which one horizontal is, that is the one that goes from left to right. The y-axis is the vertical number line. And that goes from the bottom to the top. Okay, blank is the intersection of the x and y axis. That is known as the origin. Okay, the origin is at the point of 0, 0. Remember, up on the coordinate plane, it says that the two number lines intersect at their 0 points. That's why it's 0, 0. And then lastly, it says blank is or a pair of numbers that gives a location of a point in the coordinate plane, aka the coordinates of the point. This is known as an ordered pair. Okay, so now we're going to do some labeling on the graph. So our coordinates always go x, comma, y. Again, the x's go from the left to the right. The y's go from the bottom to the top. We always start at the origin whenever we're plotting points. Okay, so looking at our graph, first we need to label the x and the y-axis. So again, the x-axis is the horizontal axis. So that's this one right here. The y-axis is the vertical axis. It goes right here. They meet right here in the middle at what is called the origin. So I'm going to go up here and write that. Okay, now we're going to break up this graph into 4 different parts. Okay, the 4 different parts are known as quadrants. Okay, so we have 4 different quadrants on our coordinate plane. The first quadrant is up here. So quadrant 1. Okay, I like to use Roman numerals, okay, but just know that is the same as 1. In quadrant 1, my x values are positive and my y values are positive. So both numbers will be positive that go into quadrant 1. Looking at the quadrant right next to it, this is known as quadrant 2. Okay, again, I like to use Roman numerals, but it's the same thing as the number 2. In quadrant 2, if you notice, my x values are negative, but my y values are still positive. Okay, then we go down. This is quadrant number 3. Oops, I misspelled it. Okay, again, I like to use Roman numerals. Okay, in quadrant 3, my x values are still negative, and now my y values are negative, so there are double negatives there. And last but not least, we have quadrant 4. Again, Roman numerals, but if you want to use just number 4, that's perfectly fine. In quadrant 4, my x values are positive, but my y values are negative. Okay? So that's everything we need to know about the coordinate plane. Now we're going to practice plotting some points. So we have some points. We want to plot them and label them. Remember, our x value goes first, our y value goes second. So point A is at 2, 4. They're both positive, which means it needs to go in quadrant 1. So I'm going to go to the right 2. I'm going to go up 4 and plot a point. And I'm going to label it A. Now I'm going to plot point B. It's -2, -3. Okay, so if I look at my quadrants, they're both negative in quadrant 3, so it should be down here somewhere. So I have -2, so I'm going to go to the left 2. I'm going to go down 3, and I'm going to plot my point and label it B. So now we're moving on to point C. It's 5, -2. My x value is positive. My y value is negative. So that looks like it's going to be in quadrant 4. So I'm going to go to the right 5 and down 2. And label it point C. Okay, point D is 0, 2, which means I'm not moving left or right. Okay, but I am going up 2. So that's going to be right on the y-axis. And I'm going to label it point D. And lastly, I have point E at -4, 0. So I'm going to go over to the -4, and then I'm not going to go up or down. So it's going to be right on the x-axis. And that's going to be point E. Now we're going to do the opposite. I have 5 points here that I need to label. So first off, point G. So point G is right here. Notice that I go over to the left 5, so that's a -5, and I do not go up or down. So therefore, it would be -5, 0. Looking at point H is up here at the top. I went to the +4 and I went up 5 because it's in quadrant 1. They should both be positive. So again, I went over 4 and up 5. Point J is down here. Okay, that's in quadrant 4. So my x value should be positive and my y value should be negative. Well, I go over +2 and I do go down 4. So that would be 2, -4. Point K is right here in the middle. And remember, we said that middle point is the origin. And the origin is where the two axes meet at their 0 coordinate, which means K would be 0, 0, the origin. So let's write that next to it. Now looking at point L, it's our last point to label. It is in quadrant 3, so both signs should be negative. So I'm going to go to the left 5 and down 3, which gives me a -5, +3. So now what I would like you to do is to take a second and look back at your notes. I want you to highlight any key words or vocabulary from here. So we had some important words up here, vocabulary. I want you to highlight the key words and vocabulary. Anything that's important with the labeling on the graph, I would like you to highlight. Okay, then I would like you to circle anything that is unknown. That way you know that you need to ask your teacher what that word means. Number 3, I would like you to place a question mark next to anything that you still have a question about, and then jot down that question. That way you remember to ask your teacher to clarify. Number 4 would be, we're going to look back our notes. Anything that we 100% understand and we have no questions about, we're going to put a nice big check mark next to it. That way when we go back and look at our notes, we know we already understood that one time and we will be able to understand it a second time. And then if there's any examples, I want you to put an EX. That way it draws your attention to those examples and you know that those are the examples explaining the processes that we're doing here. Okay, once you've done that, then I would like you to summarize about 2 to 3 sentences about this lesson. Okay, so some things you can think about when you're trying to summarize is, what did you learn? Okay, some sentence stems that you can have would be, this makes sense because, or this does not make sense because. You could say the first thing you do is, and fill in the blank. You can use the sentence stem. Something that is important to remember is blank. I still have a question about blank. Or blank is important because blank. So it's just getting you to summarize what you learned so we get a better understanding of everything, and jotting down questions. That way you can make sure you ask your teachers. So again, if you have any question, please ask your teacher. Other than that, have a